August 13th, 1974. A young climber dies on Clint Eastwood's movie set. As Hollywood prepares to retreat into a world of safe, fake stunts, the director faces a choice that could make this tragedy meaningless. Eastwood hears his crew's final plea. What he does next will change the way action movies are made for the next 50 years. Here is the story.
August 13th, 1974. High on the Eiger Mountain in Switzerland, Clint Eastwood stood on a narrow ledge, thousands of feet above the ground. He was filming the most dangerous movie of his career. The cameras rolled, Eastwood performed the stunt himself. Then he climbed back up to safety. Minutes later, a British climber named David Knowles rappelled down to that exact same spot. What happened next would change Clint Eastwood forever and force Hollywood to make a decision that would affect every action movie made for the next 50 years. This is the story of the day a man died on Clint Eastwood's set, and what the legendary director did next that saved the soul of Hollywood itself. By 1974, Clint Eastwood was one of the biggest movie stars in the world. Dirty Harry had made him a household name. The Dollars trilogy had turned him into an icon. At 44 years old, Eastwood wasn't just an actor anymore. He was a director, a producer, and the owner of his own production company, Malpaso. And he was about to take on the most ambitious and dangerous project of his life. The movie was called The Eiger Sanction, based on a 1972 novel by Trevelyan. It told the story of Jonathan Hemlock, an art history professor and former assassin who is blackmailed into one last job: climbing the deadly Eiger Mountain in Switzerland to identify and eliminate a target among an international climbing team. It was basically James Bond meets mountain climbing, and Clint Eastwood wanted it to be real, not movie magic, not Hollywood tricks, real. "I don't want stunt doubles," Eastwood told his crew. "I don't want fake rocks and green screens. We're going to climb the actual Eiger Mountain, and I'm going to do it myself." The Eiger is one of the most dangerous mountains in the world. Its north face, a sheer wall of rock and ice, had killed dozens of climbers over the years. The Germans called it Mordwand, the murder wall. Eastwood didn't care. "If we're going to make a movie about mountain climbing," he said, "then we're going to actually climb." So in August of 1974, Clint Eastwood and his film crew traveled to Switzerland. They brought with them some of the best climbers in the world: Mike Hoover, a legendary mountaineer and cinematographer; Dougal Haston, a Scottish climber who had summited Everest; Hamish McInnes, inventor of modern ice climbing equipment; and a 26-year-old British climber named David Knowles. Knowles was there as a climbing double and a photographer. Young, talented, fearless. He was exactly the kind of man you needed for a job like this. The plan was simple: film the most realistic mountain climbing sequences ever captured on camera. But on the second day of shooting, something went horribly wrong. August 13th, 1974 started like any other day on set. The crew was filming a sequence on the west ridge of the Eiger. Clint Eastwood had just finished performing a dangerous stunt on a narrow ledge, thousands of feet above the ground. It was a scene where his character nearly falls, but catches himself with his safety rope. Eastwood insisted on doing it himself. No doubles, no tricks. "I was shaken for 3 days after that stunt," Eastwood later admitted. "It was more mentally challenging than physically demanding. You're hanging off the side of a mountain and you have to trust that rope with your life." But Eastwood survived. He climbed back to safety, and the crew moved on to the next shot. Now they needed footage from the climber's point of view, looking up at the mountain as rocks fell from above. Mike Hoover, the cinematographer, and David Knowles, the young British climber, rappelled down to the same ledge Eastwood had just left. The plan was simple. Hoover would hold the camera. Foam rocks would be dropped from above, simulating a rock slide. Knowles would bat them away from the camera, making it look dramatic. "We were both laughing," Hoover later recalled in an interview with American cinematographer. "It was routine. We'd done this kind of thing 100 times. Then they heard it, the sound of a real boulder breaking free from the mountain above. It sounds real close," Hoover said, "and I instantly cover and crouch into the wall as close as possible. I hide my hands so as not to lose any fingers. The boulder smashed into Hoover's back. He nearly blacked out from the pain. His pelvis was fractured, his muscles bruised and torn. But Mike Hoover survived. David Knowles did not. The 26-year-old British climber was killed instantly when the boulder struck him. His body was left hanging on the rope, thousands of feet above the valley below. When Clint Eastwood heard the news, he was devastated. Knowles had been standing in the exact spot Eastwood himself had occupied just minutes earlier. If the timing had been different, by even 5 minutes, it would have been Clint Eastwood hanging dead on that rope. The director was shattered. He gathered the crew together and told them he was shutting down production immediately. "We're done," Eastwood said. "I'm not going to ask anyone else to risk their lives for a movie." But then something happened that Clint Eastwood never expected. The climbers themselves refused to quit. After David Knowles died, a wake was held for the fallen climber. The crew gathered in silence. Some wept. Others stared at the mountain that had taken their friend's life. Clint Eastwood stood among them, his face grim. He'd already made his decision. The movie was over. But Mike Hoover, the cinematographer who had been injured in the same accident that killed Knowles, stood up. His pelvis was fractured. He was in agony. But he looked Eastwood in the eye and said something that would change everything. "We all knew that serious accidents were a real possibility before we started," Hoover said. "We knew the risks of our trade. We ran them habitually, and we felt that movie making added nothing to them." Another climber, Chick Scott, spoke up. "If we stop now," Scott said, "then David died for nothing. But if we finish this film, if we show the world what real mountain climbing looks like, then his death means something." Eastwood listened. He thought about David Knowles. He thought about the risks he himself had taken just hours before the accident. And he thought about what it meant to be a filmmaker. For years, Hollywood had been moving toward safer, easier ways of making movies. Stunt doubles, special effects, fake sets and painted backdrops. It was cheaper, it was safer, but it wasn't real. Clint Eastwood had built his career on authenticity. The man with no name didn't use a stunt double. Dirty Harry didn't fake his gunfights. And if Eastwood walked away now, he would be telling the world that reality wasn't worth the risk. "All right," Eastwood finally said. "We've finished the film, but we do it right. We do it for David." The next day, Clint Eastwood and his crew flew back up to the same location where David Knowles had died. Chick Scott, one of the climbers, later recalled what he saw. "We flew up to that same location, and there was the scene that we'd been faking for 2 days. Dave Knowles hanging dead on the end of the rope. It was unbelievable. Fantasy and reality come head on. The Eiger is a real mountain, and Hollywood is fantasy." But Eastwood didn't turn back. He climbed that mountain. He finished the film, and he did it without compromising the realism that had cost David Knowles his life. When The Eager's Sanction was released in May of 1975, critics were mixed on the story and the script. But every single reviewer praised the climbing footage because it was real. You could see it in every frame. The danger wasn't faked. The stunts weren't doubles. That was Clint Eastwood hanging off a mountain thousands of feet in the air, and you could feel it. "The images created on screen by Eastwood and his team are incredible," one critic wrote. "This realness makes films like this compelling in a way today's mix of live action and cartoons can never be." Even professional climber Alex Honnold, the subject of the Oscar-winning documentary Free Solo, called The Eiger Sanction the most realistic climbing footage in all of Hollywood history. But the impact of Clint Eastwood's decision went far beyond one movie. Because what Eastwood did next saved something even more important than a film. After David Knowles died, Hollywood had a choice to make. The studios could have used the tragedy as proof that practical stunts were too dangerous. They could have mandated that every action scene be filmed with doubles, green screens, and special effects. They could have turned movies into cartoons. But Clint Eastwood showed them another way. By finishing The Eiger's Sanction, by honoring David Knowles' sacrifice with a film that captured the truth of mountain climbing, Eastwood proved that realism in movies was worth fighting for. Not because it was easy, not because it was safe, but because it was real, and audiences could feel the difference. In the decades that followed, filmmakers would remember what Clint Eastwood did on that mountain. When Tom Cruise decided to hang off the side of a plane in Mission Impossible, he was following Eastwood's example. When Jackie Chan refused to use stunt doubles and broke every bone in his body for his films, he was honoring the same principle. When directors like Christopher Nolan insisted on practical effects instead of CGI for the Dark Knight trilogy, they were carrying on the tradition that Clint Eastwood had fought to preserve. Even today, when Hollywood is drowning in computer-generated action scenes, there are still filmmakers who remember. They remember that real stunts, real locations, and real danger create something that CGI can never replicate: authenticity. And they remember that a 26-year-old British climber named David Knowles gave his life to prove it. David Knowles was never famous. His name doesn't appear in any Hollywood history books. Most people who've seen the Eiger Sanction don't even know he died making it. But without David Knowles, and without Clint Eastwood's decision to honor his sacrifice, Hollywood might have lost its soul decades ago. Because when Eastwood climbed back onto that mountain after Knowles' death, he wasn't just finishing a movie. He was making a statement. Some things are worth the risk. Some truths are worth the cost. And real men don't take the easy way out. Clint Eastwood is 94 years old now. He's still directing movies, still refusing to compromise, still doing things the old-fashioned way. In 2021, at age 91, he directed Cry Macho, and he insisted on doing his own horse riding scenes, even though the studio begged him to use a younger actor. "Why would I let someone else do it?" Eastwood said. "It's my character. It's my story." That's the same philosophy that drove him to finish the Eiger Sanction in 1975. When a reporter once asked Eastwood why he took such risks, why he insisted on doing his own stunts even when it nearly killed him, his answer was simple: because that's what real men do. You don't fake it. You don't take shortcuts. You do the work, and you accept the cost. David Knowles understood that. Mike Hoover understood that. And Clint Eastwood has never forgotten it. The Eiger Sanction made $14.2 million at the box office, a modest success. It's not remembered as one of Eastwood's greatest films, but it's remembered as one of the most authentic. And every time you watch a modern action movie and think, that actually looks real, whether it's Tom Cruise climbing the Burj Khalifa or Keanu Reeves doing his own stunts in John Wick, you're seeing the legacy of what Clint Eastwood fought for on that mountain in 1975. A legacy built on one simple truth: real is better than fake, always. They don't make men like Clint Eastwood anymore, and they don't make movies like the Eiger Sanction anymore. Movies where the danger is real, the stakes are real, and the filmmakers refuse to take the easy way out. David Knowles died doing what he loved, and Clint Eastwood honored that sacrifice by finishing what they started. It's what legends do. This is Clint Eastwood's Forgotten Legends, where we uncover the real stories behind Hollywood's greatest icon. If you want to hear more stories like this, stories of courage, sacrifice, and men who refuse to compromise, subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. Next time, we'll tell you about the day Clint Eastwood drove past a homeless veteran in the rain, and what he did next shocked everyone who saw it. Until then, remember, real is always better than fake. Honor, courage, truth, that's what real men stand for.